Let the record reflect, we have reconvened with all members present. Please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing after the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Please remain standing. Rest a moment of silence for Madison resident Pamela Higgs. Pam died on November 3rd at the age of 93. She was a longtime Thursday Morning Club member and leader, a great volunteer in the community, and the wife of the late Harold Higgs, who previous councils knew very well. So let's take a moment of silence for Pamela. Thank you. A motion for the October 30th special executive meeting minutes.
So moved.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Welcome all. Congratulations to Oscar Bailey on her re-election to the council, and continue your dedicated service to Madison, and congratulations to Deb Cohen on your election and a shift after a one-year break from the Board of Education to the council. We'll be looking forward to working with you in the new year. We will announce the actual date for the reorganization meeting. We have a couple of moving targets we're trying to settle on, but we're looking at either Wednesday, January 2nd, or Thursday, January 3rd, most likely at 7 p.m., but that will be announced. And I want to thank Mark Shalanza and Kathy Daly for stepping forward to run for council. As everyone in this room, or in the front part of this room, knows, it's not easy to put yourself out there for the door-to-door campaigning, and they work very hard. And I'm looking forward for their continued work as volunteers on a couple of committees they're already on. On last Monday, the 29th, or not last, two weeks ago, we had a volunteer appreciation reception at the Community Arts Center at Rose Hall. We had about 70 volunteers that showed up. We got to show off the beautiful Community Arts Center, but more importantly, to thank the many volunteers for their service on committees in Madison. A few other things are going on. It's past Tuesday, November 6th. Besides being Election Day, we had our first of typically two emerging leaders sessions at Madison High School. This is sponsored by the Chief Executive Council for Madison. Program brings juniors and seniors together with CEOs, and this session highlighted Brooke Gagliano, the CEO of Fruita Bowls. There's a franchise now here in Madison. Brooke is a 2014 Drew University graduate, and Brooke did not take the 10-year plan like I did. She is a young executive, and so with the students, she shared her story of how she took an idea for a business and turned it to reality, and now, as a 26-year-old, she's leading a multi-million-dollar business. So the students really appreciated her effort, or her story, and had some great questions. It's been a busy few days for ribbon cutting. On Saturday, I cut the ribbon for Allstate Insurance Agency at 15 Park Avenue. While they were calling it a grand opening, it was actually their one-year anniversary. So business has been so strong, it took that long to get the ribbon cut. And today we had two ribbon cuttings, and something I could do more of now that I'm retired. One was LH Spa and Rejuvenation at 1012 Elmer Street, and the other at Museum of Early Trades and Crafts for the new Madison Visitor Center. So stop on by at both places. The employee of the month for November is Jim Trimble of the Electric Utility for his notification to the Water Department of a significant amount of water running down a catch basin on Main Street, where he observed while performing his customer service duties. The repair of this leak will save the borough thousands of gallons of unmetered water and, more importantly, lost resources. And for anniversaries, Ruth T.C. of the Engineering Department, 35 years on November 7th. I think about half of those were after she retired for the first time, but she is still putting in her time. Today was a Borough holiday for Veterans Day, so I want to thank all our Borough employees here for coming in on your day off. Typically, we move the council meeting to later in the week when there's a holiday, but because of the League of Municipalities Conference that begins tomorrow, that was not possible. So again, thank you for coming in to make this possible. And yesterday was, the actual Veterans Day, and we had more Borough employees give their time to make sure the 11th hour recognition would go off without a hitch. With all the wind on Saturday, the World War I Memorial Park at Condorcet Way was covered in leaves, and when Jimmy Finelli saw the condition early Sunday morning, he reached out to fellow Public Works staff members, Frankie Davis, Tommy DiBiase, Mike Morano, and Danny DiBiase, and without hesitation, they all came down, cleared the park, set up the PA system, making sure we could have show proper respect to our veterans. And the program was led by the American Legion, was attended by many. And just to share my comments from yesterday, it was not only was yesterday Veterans Day, but it also recognized 100 years since the 11th hour, the 11th day, the 11th month, the armistice took effect, ending what was called the Great War and the war to end all wars. And as we know now, it did not end all wars, and no war is great. There were 1.7 million casualties in 2 battles alone. 65 million total soldiers were mobilized by 10 nations, with 4.3 million from the United States. 37.5 million overall casualties and 8.5 million deaths. 116,000 of those were from the U.S. Thousands died on Armistice Day between 6 a.m. when the agreement was actually signed and the official end of fighting in the 11th hour. Many veterans returned from that war, leading the rest of lives with effects of what was then the world's newest weapon, poisonous gas, and war has not changed since then. So over the past 100 years, men and women have continued to step forward to defend our freedoms, support our allies, and to fight regimes based on hatred. And at this moment, we should pause to thank them, to show them our appreciation for their willingness to step forward and serve our country. And let us all show our support by fighting for the assistance our veterans need when they return from battle. So I think this, if you all give a round of applause for all our veterans out there, and a big thank you. Come on down here. Mary Robinson and Margie Tickner, you want to come forward? Proclamation to recognize Children's Grief Awareness Day, November 15, 2018. Let me read this and we'll ask you to make a few comments. Whereas Children's Grief Awareness Day is designed to bring attention to the needs of grieving children and provide opportunities to ensure that these children receive the support they need. And whereas created in 2008, New Jersey was the first state to sign Children's Grief Awareness Day into law, which is observed on the third Thursday in November. And whereas estimated 1 out of 15 children in the United States will experience the death of a parent or sibling before they reach the age of 18. And whereas majority of grieving children feel alone, misunderstood, and fearful, taking much longer to deal with their grief than expected. And whereas by raising public awareness on children bereavement, the community is educated in ways to support a grieving child. And whereas the residents of Borough Madison have access to 2 children's grief support centers, Imagine, located in Mountainside, and Good Grief, located in Morristown, that provide free year-round grief support to children, young adults, and the parents of bereaved children. And whereas Imagine was founded by Madison resident Mary Robinson, who lost her father while a student at Madison High School, and by Dr. Jerry Glasser, the father of Madison resident Marjorie Tickner. and is committed to creating communities where children coping with loss receive the support they need to thrive, be resilient, and to grow up emotionally healthy. Now, therefore, I, Robert H. Conley, the Mayor of Borough of Madison, on behalf of the governing body, hereby proclaim November 15, 2018 as Children's Grief Awareness Day and encourage all citizens to ensure that no child grieves alone. So thank you for your work.
So I just want to say thank you so much to the council for this proclamation and for recognizing grieving children. As I grew up in Madison, and this town so embraced my family when my father was diagnosed with cancer in 1973 and died in 1974. And so I'm so grateful to this community that I was able to be raised in, and so grateful to be a resident now. And I'm grateful for this proclamation because it's so important that all of the adults in children's lives understand that when a child has a loss due to the death of a parent or death of a sibling, that they need support and they need us to knock on the door of their hearts and check in with them and see how they're doing, and to give them support. So Imagine is one of those grief support centers, completely free to children, and also Good Grief in Morristown. So it's an amazing resource that we have right here. 44 years ago when my dad died, there was no support for children, and my brother and I did not do very well. But I just want to say thank you to the town, to the council for this recognition, and mostly to Margie Tickner and her dad, Dr. Jerry Glasser, who made it possible for Imagine to exist, and who was really the visionary and the catalyst for the creation of a Children's Grief Support Center in Union County, and also was a support of us at Good Grief. So he was an extraordinary man with great vision.
Reports from committees. Health. Council President Rowe.
No report this evening, Mr. Mayor. Thank you.
Public Works and Engineering. Ms. Vitale.
Thank you, Mayor. I also want to say thank you to the DPW guys that showed up without being asked to clean up Condorcet Way. And it kind of leads me into what I have to talk about the leaves coming down. As you know, we had very strange fall so far. The leaves did not turn, they did not fall, so it's been hindered picking them up. I talked to Ken today, and they've been picking up. In fact, on my street, they already picked up once. So just be patient. They're all out, all over town, picking up the leaves, but it was kind of strange. It was kind of a strange year that the leaves did not turn and fall. So, but congratulations to all of those guys. They did a good job. It was totally awesome to go up there. It was a beautiful ceremony done by the American Legion this year. And everything was just absolutely beautiful looking. So we have some very, very fine people that work for this town who really care about it. Thank you.
Thank you. And just to reinforce with the pickup, I did see a post on Facebook about someone had put the yard waste in bags, which would then be picked up by our haulers. And I guess our haulers missed it on a particular day. So the best thing to do is call Public Works, and they will get a truck to go by and pick it up, because sometimes it does get missed. So we will make sure that they follow through. Finance and Borough Clerk, Ms. Bailey.
Oh, thank you, Mayor. This evening we are introducing a bond ordinance. Over the past few years, the borough has taken a pay-as-you-go approach with surplus from the electric utility to fund the borough's general capital needs. As such, it is very rare for us to introduce a new bond ordinance. The bonds being discussed this evening are for capital projects at our sewage treatment plant that we share with Chatham, which is called the Madison-Chatham Joint Meeting. We are able to access low-cost and even some no-cost borrowing from the New Jersey Infrastructure Bank, previously known as the Environmental Infrastructure Trust. The Borough has historically bonded for improvements to the joint meeting using the Infrastructure Bank. At the end of every year, the Borough Finance Department creates and posts an annual debt statement. The statement is required by state statute, and it reflects the municipal and Board of Education authorized borrowings. There is a maximum amount that any municipality can borrow based on the equalized assessed property values in the municipality. Fortunately, the borough is well below that maximum. The Borough Finance Department is also required to prepare a supplemental debt statement before a bond ordinance can be introduced. That statement has been provided to the clerk and sent to the Division of Local Government Services in Trenton. It will also be posted on Rosenet in the coming days. So we're going to pass an ordinance and resolution tonight, hopefully. Thank you.
Thank you. Public Safety, Mr. Wilkowitz.
Thank you, Mayor. The fire department would like you to hear about their October, so I have a brief rundown of some of the major events of that month. They had, as far as alarms are concerned, they had 22 general alarms, 23 still alarms. They had 25 investigations and 36 EMS calls for a total of 106 calls. It occurs to me, as I've been doing this over the course of the year, I don't think that total number is varied by more than about 5%. There's some constant of the number of calls the fire department gets to make. You may recall on October 22nd, there was a major fire in Dover, and our fire department lent a hand by basically going to Dover and covering other fires that were taking place in town. So they weren't involved in the major one on the 22nd, but they were obviously a great deal of help to the fire department there. On Wednesday, 2 days later, there was still smoldering in the site of the fire, and the people who were covering it, the firefighters in Dover, were running out of gas, as it were. So our guys four of them went to assist and help them out for the better part of the day. It's the way it works in this county, and it's a great thing that each of these fire departments will help each other. Also, October was Fire Prevention Month, and all our pre-K through 8th grade students were given fire safety talks at each school in town. So if you heard about it, there was a fireman in their class, that's what it was about. Thank you. No report from police.
Oh, very good. Community Affairs, Ms. Byrne.
Thank you, Mayor. It's a quiet week here in Lake Wobegon. No, it's actually been very busy. The farmers market, which everyone was used to visiting on Central Avenue, has moved over to the new community center, I think it's what it's called, over at Rose Hall. I can recommend the soup guy. He sells soup. It's awesome. And if you bring the bottles back, he gives you money off. And my husband has been surviving on that. The Recreation Advisory is very happy and that we passed the ordinance and the money to renovate the Little League fields. Once we gave them the money, they started talking about what they wanted next. So, but no, they're very happy. And finally, on a personal note, when I moved to Madison, over 25 years ago, but I moved into my current house 25 years ago on Albright Circle, and Pam Higgs lived at the bottom of Albright Circle. And I was there about 2 weeks, and this woman that I'd never met rang my doorbell, and she said to me in quite a proper British accent, "Hello, dear, my name is Pamela Higgs, and I think you should join the Thursday morning club." She obviously hadn't seen my 3 young children, but she prevailed, and I joined the Thursday morning club, and I realized what a fantastic asset she was to Madison, and brilliant. And we got to be friends. And about 3 years ago, it became apparent that she couldn't live on her own anymore, and she knew that, and everyone else knew that, and so she moved herself into a nursing a home, an assisted living, and I kept going to see her because she was my friend. And she would say to me, you really don't need to come, dear. I'm quite fine without you. But I wasn't fine without her. So, the Thursday Morning Club, I know I'm going to be mourning a lot of them for a while. But Pam Higgs, she was special.
Thank you. And utilities, Mr. Hoover.
Yes, Mayor, thank you. I have a couple of short reports, one from the electric department. They transferred power, in addition to their normal markouts and house services, they transferred power around Green Village Road by Drew University so their crew could remove bad trees. Friday, November 9th, there was an emergency power cutoff at Cedar and Pine, so the department could replace a broken cutout box. Service was restored within an hour. The electric department was asked to disconnect the power running along 919 Greenwood by a new contractor so they could complete the brickwork in the front of the building. In the water department, again, their usual markouts and meter installations. The department checked a leaking pipe at a residence home on 9 Belmont. The department assisted by stopping the leak and advising the homeowner to have it replaced in the future. A low-pressure call was determined to be on the customer side of the meter. Homeowner called the plumber to repair the problem. Curb box was replaced at 6 Page Street, and a call from the police for the second time reported a hydrant leaking on Shunpike Road. The water department wants me to share with citizens that hydrants are not to be used for any reason other than firefighting. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you. Any communications or petitions?
Yes, Mayor. Council received an email letter from resident Carlton Winthrop of Green Village Road regarding the electric vehicle charging station.
Thank you. Now we're on to our first of two invitations for discussion. This is limited to items on our agenda discussion and also resolutions. Any ordinances, we'll have a hearing. You can comment on the ordinances at that point. Just so you know, if you were here to comment on Ordinance 49, we will have the hearing, but that ordinance will be withdrawn. We'll explain that shortly. If you want to comment on other things besides the agenda items, we will have another comment period a little bit later in the meeting when you can step forward and comment on anything else. Let me just go through the resolutions very quickly so you know what they are when they come to the consent agenda at the end of the meeting. Resolution 294 is rescinding Resolution 211, ratifying a contract with MPay2 Park, a mobile parking payment enforcement system. The vendor has failed to timely submit contractually required documentation, so we're rescinding that and we'll go back out in a new RFP. Resolution 295, authorizing up to $800 in open space trust funds, and that was coming up as number 2 in our discussion, so that moves forward. That's part of the consent agenda. Resolution 296, authorizing agreement with St. Hubert's Giralda for animal control services. So we're shifting our animal control, and it will be more locally based with St. Hubert's. And this is an amount not to exceed $26,144 in 2019. Resolution 297, amending Resolution 77, 2018, authorizing contract for gasoline through Morris County Cooperative Pricing, and this is increasing the amount by $25,000 to $145,000. Resolution 298 is raffle licenses for the Madison High School PTSO. Resolution 299 is authorizing purchase of dump truck body and related equipment for the Department of Public Works, and this is the amount of $20,210 and funded through Ordinance 41-2018. Resolution 300, authorizing purchase of utility truck body and related equipment. This is another one. This is amount of $24,829, also funded through Ordinance 41. And Resolution 301, which these are the type of resolutions we see this time of year, and this is transfer of budget amounts, and this is moving money transferred in construction, $65,000. Out of insurance, $65,000. We cannot overspend a budget, so this time of year we move money around if there's any overspend. Resolution 302, resolution authorizing reduction of restoration bond at 5 Geralda Farms, which is Allergan, and this is reducing their bond from $28,000 to $4,155 because the improvements have been completed. Resolution 303, authorizing spaces in the public parking lot, the Civic Center, to be used by the Thursday Morning Club on November 16th and 17th. Resolution 304 is a contract, authorizing contract, advanced electronics design for the purchase of mobile vision recorders, Madison Police Department vehicles under a state contract. And this is not to exceed $27,205. And this is from the police outside duty trust account. Resolution 305 is purchase of police vehicle for the amount of $35,896, and this is also being funded through the police outside duty account. Resolution 306 is authorizing final change orders from Cefelli & Son. That was they did most of the road reconstruction this year, and the change orders of $145,000, bringing final payment to $905,000. And this was changes that incurred on the field, and they were all based on unit pricing. Resolution 307, confirming payment number 2 and change orders number 2 through 6 to JTG Construction for Plain Street reconstruction, and this is in the amount of $124,000. And then Resolution 308 is a resolution amending the capital budget, and this is to include the amount that is being bonded for the improvements at the sewer treatment plant for $4.77 million. So those are resolutions. You may comment on any of those, and they'll be part of the consent. Anyone wishing to comment on any of the agenda items, please step forward. Seeing none, we close this part of the meeting, and we move on to agenda discussions. And first one is the Madison-Chatham Joint Meeting Financing and Bond Ordinance, and Austria already kind of teed that up fairly well with your introduction. Ray, any more detail we need to?
Yield to Austria.
Yep.
No, I haven't got anything else to report.
Yep.
Jim does.
Yeah, Jim? Yep. Yeah. Yeah, it would make sense to call the CFO up, wouldn't it?
Thank you, Mayor. I recognize council knows the majority of what I'm going to say. I think I'm really saying it more for the public good. And then Councilwoman Bailey did a great job kind of setting it up and explaining in broad strokes what's happening. It's important for residents to understand a bond ordinance does 2 things. It authorizes debt and it appropriates money for the project. This project, as Councilwoman Bailey explained, is for plant capacity expansion and needed improvements at the Madison-Chatham Joint Meeting where our sewage is processed. It also helps with compliance with new DEP regulations. The authorization is for $4.77 million. The borrowing will be for 30 years. The total amount that is going to be authorized is $7.5 million, and Chatham Borough will be paying and covering the difference of that authorized amount. The cost short-term will be 0%. The way this works, we borrow money short-term from the Infrastructure Trust Bank, as Councilwoman Bailey explained. That's at 0%. Once the project is about 75% complete, then we're able to identify what the total cost is going to be, and it is that point in time when we lock in the debt for 30 years. And so it is likely going to be much less, could be hundreds of thousands of dollars less than the $4.77 million that we're authorizing this evening. The debt service, if we were to borrow the total $4.77 million over 30 years, is about $160,000 to $180,000, depending on interest rates and depending on exactly how much is borrowed. That won't show up in the borough budget until 2020, we believe, or even later. And what's good about that is council years ago chose to do refinancing and refunding of existing debt. So those debt amount and that debt cost will be reducing in a couple of years. So we don't anticipate a huge bump in the budget in terms of our debt borrowing at that time. There'll be a bump, but it won't be significant. As Councilwoman Bailey explained, there is a supplemental debt statement that is issued. For those who are geeky like me, I find it very interesting. As she mentioned, our borrowing that we have is much lower than what is allowed in totality by state statute. State statute is 3.5% of the equalized value averaged over 3 years. That's $138 million that we could borrow. We are only borrowing right now in net debt $23 million. So we're only at 16% of our capacity. We could borrow literally 6 times as much. Don't recommend that. Just saying that we have the ability to do that. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions. I think it's pretty self-explanatory.
Question of Pat?
Yeah, it's actually part more of a point of clarification for the public. The short term is not just 0% interest, but it's zero repayment as well. We're just getting the money from the state to pay our costs during the cost of the construction up until the point where we actually start to take on the full debt. So you're right. Over the next several years, we're not going to see any impact to the budget.
Correct. And to refine what Councilwoman Bailey said, 75% of the borrowing that we have will be 0% interest. It'll really be a loan that we just pay back. We take that amount and divide it by 30 and pay that back on an annual basis to the infrastructure trust. It's only that remaining 25% which has any interest implied.
Any other questions or comments? Thank you very much. And this is Ordinance 50 that was introduced tonight. And now, Open Space, Recreation, Historic Trust requests from Community Garden.
Okay, thank you, Mayor. The Community Garden Committee came and made a request to the Open Space Committee. The Open Space Committee is recommending to the Council that we support this. It's basically part 2 of a wildflower garden to attract pollinators that the Community Garden started last year. They're requesting up to $800 for the seed mix, and they will be renting a small rototiller to help them plant the seeds. The current garden has been successful. There are flowers, and there will continue to be flowers. Apparently, the garden establishes itself over a period of years. Anyway, the application form is attached. If you have any questions, I think I can answer them.
Maureen?
I just wanted to point out that the pollinator garden has been very successful for the community garden. We have bees. We have 5 hives at the community garden, and the pollinator garden supports them. But actually, the pollinator garden really supports all of Madison, because it's really amazing how far a bee will go to find food. But in addition to bees, it attracts monarch butterflies. And as anybody who has been watching the news and watching the environment, monarch butterflies are becoming endangered by environmental factors. So having a landing spot for monarchs in Madison is actually a very special thing we can do for the environment.
Thank you. Any other comments or questions? All right, this is Resolution 295 is on the consent. Ordinances for hearing. Will the clerk please read the statement?
The ordinance is scheduled for hearing, were introduced by title and passed on first reading at the regular meetings of the council held on Wednesday, October the 10th, and Monday, October the 22nd, 2018. They were posted and filed according to law, and copies were made available to the general public requesting same.
I call up ordinances for second reading and ask the clerk to read said ordinance by title. Ordinance 48-2018.
Ordinance of the Borough of Madison appropriating $50,000 from the General Capital Improvement Fund for reseeding and repair of borough parks and recreation fields.
I open the hearing for ordinance 48. Anyone wishing to comment, please step forward. Seeing none, I close the hearing.
Mayor, I move ordinance 48-2018.
I'll second that motion.
Any council discussion? Maureen?
so I'm going to chime in again. The fields have been tended to over the years. I said, why do we have a problem? The fields composition of the fields here in Madison is the exact same composition as Yankee Stadium. And I couldn't understand why we had a problem. And it was pointed out to me that Yankee Stadium has a full field crew that do nothing but groom the infield to make it playable. So, it's $50,000, but this is going to make the fields playable. It's going to set them up so that they will be maintaining them will be easier, and we hopefully won't be having to redo them again in a few years. And I think there are over 1,000 kids in Little League, so for $50,000, that's a pretty good investment.
Pat?
Are we actually taking the dirt out? Because I had heard...
I'm sorry, what?
Are they taking the actual infield dirt out? Because I had heard several years ago the same thing, that one of the issues we had with those particular fields is that they decided to put material that was used on a professional baseball field, which is fine if you're aerating it weekly, monthly, whatever they do, whereas in a town like Madison, it's not the right material for that type of field. We need something that
it's a little
requires less
lower
maintenance.
Yes.
Yes.
Lester, you have your hand up.
Well, this is not just Little League. This ordinance pertains to general maintenance of our fields across the board, and hopefully in the 2019 budget, we will have a line item for maintenance of our fields, and this is just the start. The other ordinance is for Little League, the Little League, and we've already passed that.
Mm-hmm. Oh, okay.
Yeah, this is different.
This is for the soccer fields and on Rosedale and
all the fields.
Memorial and Baileyard.
Any other comments? Roll call vote, please.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Ms. Byrne?
Yes.
Mr. Hoover?
Yes.
I declare ordinance 48-2018 adopted and finally passed, and ask the clerk to publish notice there in the newspaper and file the ordinance in accordance with the law. Ordinance 49-2018.
Ordinance of the Borough of Madison appropriating $46,000 from the General Capital Improvement Fund to purchase 2 truck bodies with plows and equipment for the Public Works Department.
Okay, as noted before, this ordinance will be withdrawn, but we'll open the hearing. The money was funded previously on another ordinance, and we're just in the resolutions today are appropriating or spending the money. Anyone wishing to comment, please step forward for ordinance 49-2018. Seeing none, I close the hearing. Could I have a motion to withdraw?
Mayor, I withdraw. I make a motion to withdraw ordinance 49-2018.
I second that motion.
Any council discussion? Roll call vote.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Ms. Byrne?
Yes.
Mr. Hoover?
Yes.
I declare ordinance 49-2018 officially withdrawn. Thank you. And now we're on to our second of invitations for discussion. This is when you may comment on any topic. Step up to the lectern, state your name, your address, write the same on the clipboard, and keep your minutes to 3 minutes or less. Keep your comments to 3 minutes or less. I will give you a warning at 3 and allow you to a 1 minute grace period. Anyone wishing to comment, please step forward. Seeing none, I close this part of the meeting. We're now on to introduction of ordinances. Will the clerk please read the statement?
Ordinance scheduled for first reading will have a hearing date set for November the 26th, 2018. Will be published in the Madison Eagle, posted on the bulletin board, made available to members of the public requesting copies.
I call up ordinance 50-2018 for first reading. Ask the borough clerk to read said ordinance by title.
Ordinance 50, 2018, bond ordinance to authorize the funding of a portion of the cost of the improvements of the Madison-Chatham Joint Meetings Molitor Water Pollution Control Facility by and for the Borough of Madison and the County of Morris, State of New Jersey, to appropriate the sum of $4,770,000 to pay the cost thereof, to authorize the issuance of bonds to finance such appropriation, and to provide for the issuance of bond anticipation notes in anticipation of the issuance of such bonds.
Okay. Shall I now read this statement? Be it resolved that bond ordinance 50-2018, which the Borough Clerk read by title, does now pass on first reading, and that said ordinance be further considered for final passage at a meeting to be held on the 26th day of November 2018 at 8 p.m. or as soon thereafter as the matter can be reached at the regular meeting place of the Borough Council, and that at such time and place all persons interested be given an opportunity to be heard concerning said ordinance, and that the Borough Clerk is hereby authorized and directed to publish said ordinance according to law with a notice of its introduction and passage on first reading, and of the time and place when and where said ordinance will be further considered for final passage. I move ordinance 50-2018.
I will second.
Any council discussion? Roll call vote.
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Ms. Byrne?
Yes.
Mr. Hoover?
Yes.
We move on to consent agenda resolutions. Will the clerk please read the statement?
Consent agenda resolutions will be enacted with a single motion. Any resolution requiring expenditure is supported by a certification of availability of funds. Any resolution requiring discussion will be removed from the consent agenda. All resolutions will be reflected in full in the minutes.
Mr. Mayor, I move resolutions R 294 through 308-2018.
I'll second.
Any that need to be pulled for further discussion? All right, any discussion? Roll call vote?
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Ms. Byrne?
Yes.
Mr. Hoover?
Yes.
There is no unfinished business. Approval of vouchers.
Fund, $361,545.10. General Capital Fund, $507,284.97. Electric Operating Fund, $657,872.67. Water Operating Fund, $43,455.02. Water Capital Fund, $408. And trust, $129,580.21. The total is $1,700,145.97.
Mr. Mayor, I move the bill list.
Second.
Any discussion? Roll call vote?
Mrs. Vitale?
Yes.
Ms. Bailey?
Yes.
Mr. Wolkowitz?
Yes.
Mr. Rowe?
Yes.
Ms. Byrne?
Yes.
Mr. Hoover?
Yes.
There is no new business.
Mr. Mayor, I move that we adjourn.
Second that?
All in favor?
Aye.
Thank you all.
Okay. That was pretty easy.
Joy, Ray, Joy,
All right, when do you leave?
Evan Hansen. You're going to see Evan Hansen, right?
I'm out of here.
Such a good show.
To the mayor's seminar Wednesday, 9 o'clock.
You going?
9 o'clock is your seminar?
Moderating a seminar at room 408, 9 a.m. on Wednesday.
I'll be there. I'm speaking with Jim on Wednesday.
On the public information, that's right after the mayor.